at a Constitution night. And I asked him one of my favorite discussions I like to have is on public safety versus individual rights, which is more important. When you want to have a fun time talking with somebody and you kind of know this foundation, this is a great discussion to have because most Americans think public safety is more important. It's not. If you want public safety, go to Saudi Arabia. They'll give you all the public safety you want, but individual liberty doesn't exist. Right? We believe our default position is individual liberty. And so I'm talking with my boy. I said, what's more important? He's like, Dad, we've had this discussion before. Right? I've already told you it's individual liberty. I said, why? He said, well, that's because that's what we've talked about. I said, well, let me give you an example. And then I just came up with a bit of a crude example of free speech and vile speech coming in and advocating things that you don't agree with. He said, would you protect that? He said, yeah. I said, what, you love that group? Were you part of this group? I don't know about this. He says, Dad, no. He says, I would defend that group, even though I don't agree with that group. Follow this. Because I don't want to be a slave. This is a 12-year-old boy. I will defend that group. I will advocate for the freedom for that group, even though I don't endorse the message, because I don't want to be a slave. Blew me away. So what do you mean you don't want to be a slave? He says, Dad, you tell me about how you go out and you speak to these groups on the Constitution and freedom. I'm telling you, Dad, let me teach you a lesson right now, Dad. If you don't defend those people, at some point, Dad, they're coming after you. They're coming after your message. At some point down the line, you're standing there. We have to link arms. We've got to recognize what it is that we're standing for. Let me spend a little bit of time talking about this foundation of the Constitution and how we see God really involved. We talk about a Republican form of government. A Republican form of government. Protect the rights of the people. Protect the rights of the people. We do not believe in this idea of a democracy. This can be very, very difficult. Why? Because it's awfully difficult at times to stand for freedom that we don't necessarily agree with. But in a Republican form of government, we must look for candidates who understand what it means to live in a republic. Because you don't want to know something? Some candidates, if they're honest with you, will tell you this. I will not always do what the majority want me to do. It's not their job to necessarily follow what the majority want them to do, if what they're being asked to do would infringe on the fundamental liberties of a particular group. Do you have candidates out there with the courage that will tell you straight up to your face, I may not always do what you want me to do, but will you trust me? And I understand this idea of government, and I understand what it lives to live in a Republican form of government, and I will do those things because I'm taking an oath. And that oath may require me to do something the majority don't want me to do, because it's about protecting the liberty of all people. I don't hear that being talked about much, but it would be refreshing to hear it. As opposed to saying, we had the comment made earlier, hey, all these laws. Right, what are we hearing? We hear candidates coming in telling us about more laws that they're going to implement. You know what would be refreshing? Tell me about what you're going to do away with. What are you going to repeal? Right, what are you going to repeal? Can you imagine this? You had a candidate come up, and he's got it all laid out on a poster board for you. Ladies and gentlemen, here's what I'm going to do as a candidate. We don't need more laws. We need to do away with laws. Because the more laws that we enact, what happens? Just a small sliver of freedom is lost with every enactment of virtually every law. So here's what I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this. And here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create alliances. Right? We're going to create alliances and we're going to start a movement. And we're going to bring other people in and we're going to educate them within Congress. And we're going to start to educate them as to what this Constitution was designed to do. And we're going to help set them straight as we create these alliances. That would be refreshing. That's what we need. So we have a Republican form of government. As you look at the form of government that we have, and you look at our Constitution, where do you see God's inspiration? Where do you see His inspiration in this document?
34% of it.
To talk about something.
The right to property.
The right to property. Right? We mentioned that, Len mentioned that. Don't steal, don't covet. Right? That seems to tell us very clearly that there's this property right that exists. Right? And if you violate the property rights of others, there's punishment. The first 4 commandments tell us about what? That vertical relationship with God, and the remaining tell us about that horizontal relationship with mankind, with other people. And there are rights that must be protected. Very good. What else? Where else do you see the inspiration as you look at this Constitution? Marriage? Does it talk about marriage in the Constitution? It doesn't talk about marriage, so I guess the right doesn't exist?
Yes, it does.
It does?
Yes.
Where does it say that it exists? I don't find it anywhere found in the Constitution that the right to marry exists.
10th Amendment.
You just relaxed over there. I didn't call on you. That's Bill. Just ignore Bill. All right? He's always getting his nose in other people's business. And I didn't see a hand. I didn't acknowledge. You and your cowboy hat over there. I told you I got my cowboy boots. Now the hat's coming next, Bill. You just relaxed. What else? Okay. See, you got me all flustered. It doesn't say anything about the right to marry in our Constitution. And yet we claim that the Constitution enumerates certain rights. Do we really have the right to marry if it's not found in our Constitution? What are your thoughts on this? Larry, you're raising your hand.
God-given right.
Is it God-given right? So those rights that are not God-given are not found in our Constitution? Those rights that are not God-given are not found in our Constitution? Or that are? See, there you go, Larry. Those rights that are God-given are not found in our Constitution? Because the right to marry is not found in our Constitution.
All of our rights come from God.
All of our rights come from God. Well, what happened to the right to marry?
The pursuit of happiness.
Let's talk about that. Pursuit of happiness. Although the ladies would probably disagree with this, right? You've been involved in this institution for way too long. This is what we meant when we said the pursuit of happiness. Are you kidding? Oh my goodness. Actually, let's talk about the pursuit of happiness, because the pursuit of happiness is not found in the Constitution either.
The Declaration.
It's found in the Declaration of Independence, and it says the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. When Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence and he mentioned the pursuit of happiness, he was relying on all the legal commentaries that existed at the time, which referred to the right to enjoy, possess, and dispose of property as you will. You've heard about this, the American dream is to own a home? I mean, that's essentially what we're talking about with the pursuit of happiness. But yes.
The rights are enumerated, and so anything that we cannot, that Congress could not do is enumerated, and everything we can do.
Okay. So the right to marry is not found in our Constitution. God, this is why you need to come to one of our seminars, right? We'll have the time of our lives, but this is one thing that I teach in our seminar. Our first seminar, by the way, is called How to Argue the Constitution and Win Every Time. It's understanding issues like this, equipping ourselves to go out and be able to articulate what it means to be exceptional as a country. We must learn to defend this Constitution. We absolutely must learn to do this. And this is a common tactic. When you say that rights are enumerated in the Bill of Rights, okay, fine and dandy to show me where it says the right to marry. Well, the 9th Amendment answers this question for us. The 9th Amendment says just because a right is not outlined in the Bill of Rights does not mean the right doesn't exist. Right? And we can look back then. Were they arguing back then about what marriage was? It was a foregone conclusion what marriage was. Right? Steve, did you have your hand raised?
I did. I've been trying to answer the question you asked.
Oh my gosh!
You've been in a,
I thought you were preparing to throw a donut or something. I was like, what's you doing?
I was almost ready to throw it at you.
That's why you just have to yell because I think it's
I gotta yell. You're giving me a phony mic.
Let's hear this, Steve.
There are no enumerated rights of the people in the Constitution. All of the rights come from God. We have all of the rights. They existed before the Constitution.
Very good.
Very good. Wait a minute. Yeah.
You, Steve.
Let me finish. Ask the question.
Yeah, I spent several months now studying.
You need to come to my class.
Is that why you've been coming to my classes, Steve? I think you're taking my information and teaching that in your class, Steve.
I think you're taking my information. Anyway, the Constitution doesn't give you any rights. If you go into court and demand your constitutional rights, you're going to get every one you got coming, which is absolutely zero. The Constitution is the people's construction of the government. It tells the government what it can and cannot do. It governs the government, not the people.